hopefully there's space on the cloud. I didn't double check this, but I'm going to allow you to record as well, Bastian. Back up. Give me a thumbs up when you've started. I think he's.
Okay, yeah, I muted myself. So yeah,
okay.
I pressed a button and it says it's recording somewhere. So
okay.
Let's hope it works.
So welcome everyone to the Open Humans Community Call. I have some rough ideas of topics for today, and so I'll list those, and then I'll invite everyone to give a brief hello, intro, 1 or 2 sentences, especially if you're new, but a lot of familiar faces here. And let us know during those 1 or 2 sentences if you have something that you'd like us to talk about today, so that we can adjust the agenda to match that, because this is an open call. Hi. Oh, and here's the topics that I do, that are suggested things to talk about. One is I'd love to invite Gary to share a virtual quantified self meetup that he's organizing in a couple weeks. And then Bastian had a brief update on a topic from last meeting about Jupyter Hub and Voila for Open Humans. And then after that, talking about Quantified Flow was a rough plan, just to go over sort of recent updates and planned updates that were in features that we're thinking about doing, and maybe review sort of what the current user experience looks like for people and what people think of it. But other topics are certainly welcome. So the format is that we each pass the ball to someone else to say hi and such. So I will pass the ball to Gary.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Wolfe. I'm the founder and director of Quantified Self and a board member of Open Humans and participating in Quantified Flow. So it's nice to see you all. Oh, I passed the ball to Bastian.
Okay, hey everyone, I'm Bastian. I'm the Director of Research for Open Humans and a research fellow at the Center for Research and Interdisciplinarity at CRE, and one of the people behind Quantified Flow. And I will pass it on to Christopher.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Christopher from Germany. I'm a computer scientist and also a member of Quantified Flow, and tracking for several years now. So, and with that, I pass the ball to the new one, Morgan.
You're muted, Morgan. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, hi, my name is Morgan. I'm a neuroimager, and here interested with my Neurotech X hat on, in terms of collecting EEG data from home. Oh, and sorry, and then can I pass it to, is it Katarina?
Yes, hey everybody. My name is Kate. I'm leading a quality of life technologies lab in Copenhagen and Geneva. I'm a computer scientist and I'm quantifying self, actually myself. I realized since the first Fitbit, what was that, 2009? So I have 11 years of different data sets, and recently more and more of different devices. But nevertheless, I passed the ball to Paula.
Hi everybody, sorry for joining late. I'm guessing we're doing intros. I work as a data scientist at an education company called Mystery Science. And I've been participating in the research project about self-tracking and just tracking sleep and device usage and anything that I can think of just to make a very comprehensive visualization of what I do day to day. Oh, and I the ball. Yes, I'm not sure if Dave has already spoke, but I passed the ball to Dave.
Okay, my name is Dave Blackwell. I'm an open human and joined George Church's personal genome project, and I put my ID in the sign up there. I'm very interested in atrial fibrillation because I have it, and I'm trying to recover from it. I'm a retired computer programmer and data analyst. I've worked for Tufts Health System here in Massachusetts for many years, and before that I was an analyst at several other companies. I'm especially interested right now in vitamin D3 and zinc, and I'm kind of upset that whenever you recommend people to have social distancing or wear a mask, you don't also recommend that they make sure they have a good nutritional diet and even take D3 and zinc to prevent flu. I think that a lot of the reason that flu occurs in the winter is because people are low in D3, and zinc is an important micronutrient, and it's been proven to help stop virus invasion of your cells. And I posted a video link to a YouTube video in the chat group there, which I urge people to watch. Thank you very much.
And I think Jonathan, Roger, and Ben are left. I guess I'll pass the ball for you to Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Breyer. I'm based here in Gothenburg, Sweden for research. I'm a PhD student or PhD candidate at the University of Maryland. You've probably seen me in the reviews of projects, mostly around information science areas. And that's, yeah, a little introduction. I just tried to finally join a call. Who's left?
Roger and Ben.
Let's go with Ben.
I'm Ben. I've been kicking around these circles for a couple decades now, which is terrifying. I was also part of George Church's personal genome project. I've worked in the bioinformatics realm and currently one of two high-performance computing experts for AstraZeneca in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and I was actually in Gothenburg last September in the before times. So it's nice to see someone else from Maryland who's in Gothenburg. NPR has just decided to refer to everything before 10 weeks ago as the before times, or American public media, and I think that's a great way to phrase it. So that's all from me. Roger.
Unmute. Good one. Hi, I'm Roger. I'm from Spain. And we basically use, with our project Open Humans, to create our own community research. And I'm a cluster headache patient, and we use Open Humans to store our data and to create analysis with the data we collect. I pass it to Matt.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm Executive Director of Open Humans, and I do have a project with the self-research project that Paula's been doing, and I think others of us here have those, and with Bastian and with Gary's help too, and lots of other people, and Kate helped a lot with the initial inspiration running the Quantified Flow project, which is very participatory, and so we will hopefully talk about it. Paula and others here, I wanted to note that we do have Thursday weekly meetings that are self-research chats, in which people are invited to come, and if they want to, they can share a ongoing project that they're working on, or just join and listen to other people. And so it's kind of been fun as a check-in space where people don't always update every week, but it bounces back and forth as we hear these sort of ongoing updates. So you're very welcome to join there. And I know other folks here have joined those calls as well. Like Christopher recently shared some amazing stuff. And yeah, so that's a heads up on those calls. So those are Thursdays at the same time, and they're not recorded. And I thought that, and Morgan had mentioned interest in EEG data, and Bastian, do you think it would be at all interesting to reflect on that? Because I know that you've kind of played with it, so I'm going to just add that as something interesting to talk about, maybe. Because I don't always want to circle around quantified flow, which is definitely an important topic to us, but it's like not the only topic that Open Humans does. With that, actually, can I get a show of hands? Most people have video of who's doing quantified flu, like, and using it to self-track symptoms. Okay, cool.
But if we could talk about the alerts I would love to talk about why they stopped at some point.
Right. I have not
Yeah.
dug into that, and so that might be particular to you. So
I'm
if I weren't
always a
leading
corner case.
yeah, if I weren't leading I can say that when I dug into Gary's alert stopping, it was all the way down to Mailgun, which is like a mail like SMTP server as a service, and it once received when Gary's mail server was down, Mailgun had received like message rejected, and it put that into a bad email list, and so then it was never going to use it again, and I had to go into Mailgun and tell it no, it's a good email. So that was that particular case. So I'll have to dig into message logs
and just FYI, that was down for moments. It was just bad timing, and apparently Mailgun, it's not very resilient. So it got one bounce, and that was that.
Yeah, I guess one bounce, and it's like that's a bad email. I think it depends on the type of bounce. The type of bounce it received, or like was indicated to it that it was bad. Okay, so with that, I think the top item I had was you, Gary, talking about the Quantified Self virtual meetup.
Yeah, so as many of you probably know, the Quantified Self community has been doing these show and tell meetups where people come together and share their self-tracking projects and answer 3 questions. What did I do? How did I do it? And what did I learn, in really short talks, usually under 7 or 8 minutes. And then there's very lively Q&A. It's wonderful. I mean, the creativity and the interest of these talks has really been what has kept me in it for, over a decade. Impossible to do that right now. And after like a morning period for our in-person meetups, which have occurred in over 100 cities around the world over the last 10 years, we're experimenting with online meetings. So we did one in Seattle, and it worked really well with the Seattle Show and Tell group. So we're going to do just an open one. We're announcing it in the next few days, mainly to the Bay Area, Portland, and Seattle groups, because we know everybody since that's our region. But I suspect there may be some people in other places who are interested. We haven't announced it yet, but I wanted to invite all of you. And also you can help me do the experiment because we've organized this community on Meetup. Meetup is so focused on local community that you actually can't communicate with Meetup members worldwide, except as the organizers of that particular local Meetup. And through DM on Meetup. So it really has crippled us in terms of communicating with the whole community. It's a balance, because Meetup has been great for kind of self-organizing these local meetups, but now's not the time for that. So we created our own sign-up form, which I just put into the chat. We haven't announced it yet, but if you fill out the form, if you want to come and you fill out the form, you'll see the Zoom meeting invite, and we'll see you. So you're invited on June 16th from 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time to 7:30. Obviously, just feel free to sign up if you think you might want to come. We don't pay anything for signups. It's, and you're also helping me kind of debug this new process. If you
Gary,
do have
I think the form doesn't have access.
That's
Access
first
control.
Bug.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
I see. I tested it on myself, and apparently I have access. But I don't know how to turn on access in Google Forms. So anyway, hopefully I got a response. Okay.
Go on with the invite, and then let us know when it's fixed later in this meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah, who knows how you it says accepting responses. Okay. If you do have a self-tracking project you'd like to present, that's wonderful, and we will be in touch with you, because we can help people get their projects to a state where they're easy to present. And one of our big lessons from over 10 years of doing this is that you don't have to have some big earth-shaking conclusion, some big discovery. It's really interesting for people just to see what you're doing. People have a lot of questions, and you might have already solved some little workflow problem that seems trivial to you that actually is very useful to somebody else. So anything that is interesting about your own data and your own experiences. Our one criteria, I should just mention it to underline it, is we ask everybody in their talk to show something, some observations. It's usually a graph or a chart or a table. It doesn't always have to be. Some people have done amazing projects where they used other graphic forms of collecting their observations, but everybody shows their own data basically in the talk. Okay. Thank you, and now I will go debug my form.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I was faced with trying to give a talk with a visualization that was not a graph, chart, or table, because it was like, these are chromosomes and this is like a picture of what's in them. But it worked out. But yeah, your own data. So speaking of data and visualizations, I guess another brief topic is Bastian's updates on Jupyter Hub and Voila.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Richard is not here, who complained the most on the last call, how like the Jupyter Hub, the notebooks that OpenHumans is providing is very outdated and everything. And in the meanwhile, I talked to Tim, who was the great contractor who actually implemented the whole notebook system for our end the last time around. He's available and he has time to update it and hopefully even get the Voila dashboards installed end of this week. So I hope that next week we have an upgraded version of the Jupyter Hub installed that maybe can even do these dashboards that I demoed in one of the earlier calls. So fingers crossed that that all works out and that he's still available. He's living in Switzerland, so I assume that he's good at keeping time.
I think it's great news that he's available, not just in sort of a nebulous way, but like a concrete at the end of this week, which is fingers crossed that that doesn't fall through, but I've never seen him fall through before. So that's great news. And then I put down, like, do we want to talk about EEG data? This is like open-ended, but Bastian, I know you've played with instruments, and so maybe you would like to chat with Morgan and others.
Yeah, like maybe Morgan, you can give us like an intro of what you are working on. That would be great, because I know you are like organization already a bit, but I think many others don't. So
Sure. Yeah. So we have a couple of ongoing projects that I'd love to talk about, and so we're a nonprofit group that tries to educate, and we create a community for developers and researchers to work on neurotechnology. And that usually involves EEG, but it also involves NIRS, near infrared systems, and to some degree we've started looking at ultrasound for neuromodulation. Anyway, and again, my background, I'm a neuroimaging researcher, so we're very familiar with. I'm familiar with building very high density EEG systems, but we're giving people a very simple project that they can use. It's called Eeg Notebooks, and so it's basically just a Python package that you can download, and then you can use to control with something like this, which is just a 4-channel EEG system, and you can be collecting data from yourself in a number of kind of pre-canned experiments, or what we would call tasks. Although resting data is also very interesting, right? Especially we see with there's in the fMRI world, which is a bit more what researchers play with. There's really interesting results from collecting resting states fMRI from the same person, say over a year period, as Russ Poldrack did at Stanford. And you could do the same thing with EEG. There's a lot to be said. I liked what you said about like not necessarily having a hypothesis. How to interpret EEG is still a big unknown question, and one that I'm super happy to talk about and relate to ongoing research. but what we really need is actually a lot of people to collect a lot of just normative data, right? And that will actually help the most in terms of not only citizens understanding this, but researchers too. And in particular, we think of this as a somewhat empowering data collection. So I wanted to just say that we've been talking with OpenBCI recently, which is a wonderful organization that supports open hardware and software, and collecting data from yourself. And we're trying to collaborate in terms of rolling out something this summer, since people are home. And researchers know we're not getting back into the lab anytime soon. I mean, we might get into the lab, but we're not going to be collecting data from subjects anytime soon. But OpenBCI has a lot of people with equipment. Muse that I just showed you is some people internally are very supportive of this too. There's a lot of people with these headsets, so we're trying to make a Python package that is hardware agnostic, and everybody can collect data with these kind of pre-canned experiments or resting data, and most importantly, because I think this is what I'm really interested to learn more about, is ways in which people are sharing data but not compromising their privacy, right? And certainly, so one of the things, my research is mostly focused in psychiatry and psychosis in particular. So I'm very cognizant of privacy issues with EEG. We're just asking anybody to collect data, and this isn't necessarily again, like I would question anybody who says they know how to interpret EEG, but I want to build that into our I want to build that in from the ground in terms of what we're proposing. And so certainly one of the things that I've been looking at and been involved with for a number of years is Open Mind, which is a group focused on federated learning, which is a means by which you can share data in encrypted form. So people can operate, we can operate on the group data, but without actually having access to the raw data. And that's what's going to make, I think, this kind of large scale citizen data collection incredibly powerful. So I'd love to hear, happy to answer any questions about that, but I hope that gave you enough detail about what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the turnkey system you just held up rather than the OpenBCI kits that you have to assemble?
Yeah, this is just an example. So again, from Neurotech X, from our GitHub and Eeg Notebooks, the project, this is the currently compatible sensor, and Interaxon Muse make I believe 3 or 4 models, and we're currently compatible with something like 3 out of the 4. So again, this is a 4-channel. It's a 4-channel system. It goes across. I'll take off my hat here, and it. So this is an EEG system that ignores the hair problem. Not that it's really my problem, but in that it focuses on using your forehead and also just behind the ears, or back here. This is I can talk at length about EEG data collection problems in terms of hair is a problem not only for EEG but also for NIRS, near infrared absorption. So this is just a particularly easy to apply system. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessary, again, like I focus on whole brain coverage, so we cover the head completely in sensors. This is limited in what you can do. The OpenBCI gives us a few more channels. So you can, I think the most, kind of most expensive OpenBCI can get up to 16 channels. And if you do any visual paradigms, you really want to have some electrodes back here at the back of the head, occipital, close to primary visual cortex. Yeah, does that, happy to, any other questions about the
Yeah, I just had one other question. I was poking at Neurotech X. Is that your site?
Yes, yeah.
When you go to...
I organize the San Francisco chapter.
Okay.
I'm in San Francisco.
Okay.
So Neurotech X is it started in Canada, in Montreal. So it's a nonprofit based in Canada. But we have, as you can see from the website, we have chapters all over the world, and I've been in many of them. Got to meet a lot of the people that organize the other chapters. And
okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious because when you go to shop, it says here, get a great discount, and you click on shop, and it says there are no products. So I'll drop it in the chat.
Is there a shop?
Yeah.
I've never seen a shop.
You've never had a need for that because you can build your own.
I want to make sure. Now I'm like, or maybe it's not.
I just chatted the link.
Okay. Let me just see if there's a shop.
Like, how did you even find it? Ah, it's the quick links at the bottom. Okay.
There's a product showcase. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't. I'm not going to speak for the.
Yeah, Ben is a master of finding the bugs.
Okay.
I still have to.
So I will check. Oh yeah, there is a store. Quick links to the store. You can ask Neurotech X services. No products are found. Yeah, I think that tells you. I think that probably tells you all the information you're going to learn. Certainly, Neurotech X is not involved in selling any products. And yeah, the support. So for some of the consumer manufacturers, it's difficult to. I mean, some of them to have an open source project can be limiting, in the sense that like some of them you have to use a particular library to have access to the device. So we've definitely tried to only use open systems, even though it's not technically open hardware. Again, like with there's a particular programmer, Andrei Parfenov, who was actually supported by OpenBCI, that developed BrainFlow that gives us access to a number of devices, including GTEC's Unicorn, which is a consumer 8-channel device that from a manufacturer.
So,
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to cut in because it's getting really like, yeah, we can go deep dive onto technical things in any data arena. I think I'm curious what interests you about Open Humans. I know that like part of what we have is stuff around data sharing, and if you're in particular interested in that or in other data sources that we work with, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we really wanted to do, so those of us who are researchers, like we kind of only know how to do kind of one thing, and that's like get IRB approval and collect data and protect it, and that is not, so we're trying to very much like step out of that to some degree, and so Neurotech X is not affiliated with any university. And we would like, together with OpenBCI to try and do something with some thought to how we should organize. and how we should, how we should properly consent, how we should properly protect privacy, and how we should explain kind of like our terms of use, because I mean, like what we definitely, or certainly my proposal for this was like, you share your data so you can have access to the group data, because doing machine learning on the group data is what's going to be the most powerful. Or certainly I can say a lot more about your data if I've got 10,000 other people's data, and I can be looking at, a Z-score of that on some particular, feature. So that's what I'm interested in learning more about, in terms of how other projects have been trying to manage that and thinking about those issues.
It's tricky because in a lot of cases, when people are sharing the data, they don't have the capacity to really use it. Like, so they're just kind of sharing it in the hopes that someone will give them a return, like an analysis that they were unable to perform for themselves. Although I'm not sure how true that is in this space, because people who are going to go to all the trouble of having these instruments and building them might in fact be much more capable of doing that.
Well, I think that's a good, I think that's a great, that's a great question, because we get asked that a lot. I definitely get more people saying like, hey, if I could contribute this data, could you give me some sort of report back? And
right.
And we could certainly we could have a, in a sense, a dashboard that is using the group data, but is personalized to, this is you on that spectrum, if you will. And then there would be, the necessary caveats that this is not medical advice. This is very much like, your height measured against the population of heights. And that's the, yeah.
I think one of my questions would be, is your vision is to have everyone who is contributing their personal data has access to everyone else's individual data,
yeah,
and is agreeing to protect everyone else's privacy.
right.
And yeah, and I think
that's why I was talking about open mind and federated learning, was that what I wanted to say, and again, like, really appreciate feedback, is by contributing, then you get to be, that's how you become a member,
you have
and
access to the federated data.
you have access to the federated group data, and the federated group results, right? And that membership, yeah, that, citizenship is by participating. That's all that you have to do. Like, it's not, there's not then a barrier to like, and you also have to become a computational Python programmer. Even though like NeuroTechX is really interested in providing workshops and things to, help you do that if you so desire. But that's what I was thinking. And again, like open mind, spelled MINED.org, if people aren't familiar.
I have a question in terms of those who submit the data. What sort of intrinsic bias or incentive they might have that a general population might not necessarily have?
Well, so I mean, if my my experience so far is that that you will get a bias of people who are experiencing or have been told that they have particular issues. So it's certainly, like, just in my own experience as part of NeuroTechX, I get a lot of questions about that. But I also don't know how much I'm biased, because I work in psychiatry. If I talk about my work, then people are more likely to ask me questions about their mental health issues. and so I have to recognize there's a secondary bias there. Yeah, this would not necessarily, there wouldn't be, the group results would definitely be a non-random sample. And I try to point this out, or certainly like the Child Mind Institute, which is a wonderful organization in New York that's collecting, that is currently running the largest EEG study. And I mean, it involves a number of other aspects, but the Healthy Brain Network is on track to collect 10,000 kids' data for ages 5 to 21. But it is definitely not going, it's not trying to be a random sample. Like there's going to be a bias towards kids that have been referred for behavioral problems, for instance. So I understand that those, we still know how to process that, how to interpret results from these kinds of bias samples is another thing. And I think it would be really important to say that this is not, that people looking for psychiatric diagnosis are coming to the wrong place in a sense.
But so you're interested in doing resting EEG or specific tasks or both?
Yeah, the resting example was if you collect repeats from multiple days, so doing like what was reported with Russ in terms of scanning yourself every day for a year and then looking for cycles and there's that kind of extensive longitudinal analysis. You could do the same thing with tasks, and certainly what we were particularly interested and focused on was the very common ERP tasks, which P300, N170, and steady state visual evoked potentials, and again, like there could be, so that kind of large data collection with tasks could be, a more kind of traditional research project that in a sense, again, you only get the benefit from the group results. So, I mean, in the sense that like, it becomes an interesting data set from having a number of people doing this. So I don't,
Yeah, no, just because like a year, maybe 2 years ago, we thought about starting, because I have a muse as well, and like many of my friends are neuroscientists, and we were like, oh, maybe we should somehow collect EEG data through Open Humans as well. Then we couldn't figure out like, what's the value if you don't have like an experiment that you're actually running? Like the resting one, okay, if you have a big population, that's interesting, but what are the standardized tasks that actually somehow are valuable for people? So I think that's where we actually stopped, because we couldn't figure out a good use case of like not just collecting data, but what's the added benefit for any participant.
Sure. So the way, I mean, I'm not going to speak for all the researchers involved, but the way I look at it is really getting at how to interpret the EEG, and in particular, how EEG can actually be used to say something about physiology and estimating, cellular, if you will, cellular parameters. So, from steady state auditory or visual evoked potentials, it's much easier to, in a sense, include a cortical model and use the data to fit, fit ideas about mean field properties of the cortical column and the cortical connectivity. So yeah, I mean, I super interested to talk about those things, and very happy to I don't know if Thursday is the best time to talk about project details, but we could, once I can put this in the document in terms of our own research goals from that.
If you're using it for self-research, like if you're using it yourself and exploring your own data and like what you see in it, then Thursdays are.
Oh, okay. I see.
And maybe I'll just pipe up. I mean, just because I know we're going to close this part of the discussion, I think my colleagues, Morgan, might be sugarcoating it a little bit. And so just so that you get like maximum benefit of the conversation, I would say I've seen, and I know others have seen, failed project after failed project, which is driven by a person's sense of interesting research questions and the excitement around those research questions that could be answered if a bunch of people shared their data.
Yeah.
And I think that approach is almost a guaranteed failure. Gotcha. Because the knowledge that you have and the experience that you have that drives your sense of excitement around those research questions is not a community kind of culture. So
Sure.
if you are building something for your very close colleagues and fellow researchers, that would potentially work, and you could use a community infrastructure to do that. That's probably 3 people, 4 people, 6 people, 10 people, right? Like these are people who you actually share that. If you want to go any broader than that, you really have to start at the other end. There's just no choice. And you have to ask, what is the benefit for the individual, to kind of come towards this project?
Well, I want to actually argue against this at this point, because I know the Neurotech X community, and I think Sydney is his name, who started the whole thing in Montreal. And so the Neurotech X people, it's like thousands of people already who are having like their own EEG devices at home and are just doing it because they are super interested in this type of data. So you have like a huge community of interest that is very nerdy about this particular kind of data, and who will have like a similar shared interest in these very specific questions. So it's not that you have like to convince random people to now get the EEG device and start doing this and learn Python and everything. You have already thousands of people that are fitting this group and you know how to contact them. So I think that's what makes it a bit different to your concerns, which I think in general are completely valid, but I think given the target community, there is like a possibility that this will not fail. Let's put it like
okay. that would be great to see an example of a success. So I take that. Point taken.
But no, I totally understand. I mean, like again, like I've been in enough labs that have started with that goal, where it's just like if everybody would just give us, would just volunteer for us. But yeah, that's why I'm really trying to emphasize that this is a Neurotech X project, and like in a sense, what we haven't done is try and roll out to our community, right? Which already exists, the infrastructure to pool, because like again, like it's very hard to understand single subject EEG. That's certainly the bit that as a researcher I can help with. And I wanted to just, that like don't, it's easy for me to fall into my researcher mode when I'm talking. But I brought that up just in terms of like, there are a lot of people that come to Neurotech X asking these questions, even though I don't think we're ready to answer them. But yeah, I'll stop there, but really appreciate the non-sugar-coated answers too. Yeah.
I have actually another question, and that is, what other kind of data do you want to collect, or is it only EEG data and you only want to analyze that alone without any demographical data and stuff like that, or activity data, and see like what's a EEG like when I have an exhausted day or something like that? So do you want to look at that as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I think if I would love it to be you run these 5 or 6 things each day, right? And you track what you're doing, you know. Then that's the bit that I don't even have to tell you what to, you know, you can do what that is. You know, I mean, in the sense that, like, you want to change your diet, great. You know, if you want to engage in an exercise program, great. If you want to work on brain training apps, you know, like you know, start doing those. I just saw a new one, Narika. You know, do that 30 minutes a day and be doing this, but you know, over 2 months, right? That would be those would be some ways to make it, you know, about how your data is changing, right? Um, but I would still say that, you know, that the processing needs that federated group data to best understand, like, how that is actually making an impact, and is not just some of the variability, you know, not due to lifestyle changes, you know, changes and things. Yeah.
So since we're running low on time, I guess I feel like I need to step in and say maybe we'll talk a little about quantified flow. So for those of us here that are not participating in it, quantified flow arose during the pandemic as we were discussing one idiosyncratic or like one-off reports where people and some known research around resting heart rate and illness, and that it rises when people are sick, and whether that could be used in any sort of self-assessment or predictive manner to understand when you are getting sick. And so quantified flu takes in, it can help people look at their wearables data from various sources, but also has a self-tracking component. So one of the things you can do is do a retrospective analysis. If you know what day you got sick, then you kind of mark it and you can see graphs. But one of the things going forward is to get, like, that's hard to do because it's hard to remember exactly when you got sick. And so going forward, it's a tool with daily check-ins, which are broken for some people like Ben. And so I'm going to look into that, where you can report usually that you're just feeling well. So there's like a no symptoms button. Just click this, no symptoms. And so some of the stuff we've been working on is like feature improvements. Basile has been working with Bastien to make symptom visualization, so you can see. I'm going to screen share now so I can quickly go through, but if I can here. Okay, so I'm on, can you see the web page?
Yep.
Okay, so when I go to the main page here, one of the things I can do is view my past reports, and if I wait for the JavaScript to load here, we can see my reports. And a lot of days where I didn't report, which is really bad because I'm bad. I'm trying to get better at it, and personally I feel more incentive to report now that I have this visualization. So hopefully I'm going to have a lot less gray gaps in my data here. And what we'd like to add to this, so this is a known to do, is to add the visualization of stuff like resting heart rate. You can see an example of one of those with one of my retrospective analyses. Here you can see my resting heart rate went up when I had a record I was sick. Not a huge temperature change, but it did go up, and you can see it pretty clearly in more detailed data. And I was able to pinpoint this one from some messages I think I sent Bastien, like, I'm feeling sick, and so I didn't get work done. So adding that wearable data is one of the things to do. One of the things I did here was in response to Ben, who said, is there a button on the site to see symptoms? And you can see there's a bigger button here for report symptoms and hopefully more visible. Ben, do you think this is a little better?
It's certainly clearer than it was on the right-hand side. I also like that it's bigger. And I know blue is our color, but no, it's a lot
Yeah.
better than it was. It's a lot better
Fuzzing
than it
over
was.
color schemes is tough. I mean, they're going in there in hex and like trying different things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it could be even more standout. Like if we use yellow as one of our color themes, and then like make it yellow. Now, something that I've been working on this last week is building some of the back-end stuff for in potentially making this set of symptoms that you report customizable. So, so I guess I would love sort of thoughts on this current, like what they imagine they'd use it for, and like whether and I'm just talking about the symptom set here. So this down here, I haven't done much work on like customizing it, but it's nice to hear from people, like if they could customize the report that they're making every day, what would they do with it? And some of the assumptions here that have been built in might be bad ones. So one of the assumptions I made is that we should have categories, and you don't need to use categories, but if you do use them, then everything's alphabetized within each category. So this is what it looks like, and I wanted to open the floor for any sort of thoughts on how they might customize the report if they were to customize it. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that this is a perfect report for everyone, like including Gary, who says that customization is so important. But obviously, when it comes to symptom tracking, we don't need customization.
We need a psychometrician. We need a psychometrician.
Do people like I'm gonna close the screen share and then maybe ask, sort of show of hands, like does anyone here imagine customizing it? Do they have thoughts immediately about?
Am I speaking or not? Yes.
Yeah, you are. I can hear you, Kate.
sorry. No, I was just saying that I'm working on the project in which patients are reporting pain and fatigue, and we follow very strict guidelines from validated scales. And what you have now in the Quantified Flow, it's a visual analog scale, like the slider, it's vast scales, and they are validated by psychometricians, and then they set them up and they stick to it. And then they research so-called response shift, because imagine that next week you feel even worse. So you 10 or 8 at some scale shifts, and then you shift back. So in fact, it should be the same. It should be the same, but and then you wanted to let people to add the labels, or maybe you wanted them to create a scale, but then it's so yeah, psychometrician would say I can do nothing with it.
Like it's bad, or because I can say that the language here,
yeah.
The language here was and the symptom sets don't exactly match, but were taken from validated questionnaires used for respiratory symptom surveys in clinics. So so I guess I'm not quite, like, while this in itself isn't a validated questionnaire, I did dig into literature on respiratory symptom questionnaires.
And now you say you would like that people customize how do they report it?
Right. So if they want to customize it, as you say, that's going to destroy sort of the standardization of the data.
Yeah.
But like the goal here is to provide a tool that gives people that individual value.
Yeah.
For clarity, Mad, you're talking about customizing the labels, but are you also talking about customizing the metric slider?
I was talking about customizing the labels, so I wasn't talking about customizing the points on the slider.
Yeah.
So you could change the categories, add a new symptom or set of category symptoms. One way to kind of try to keep data similar without going to full chaos is to give people like the default form and say you can tweak it, but then like they're making changes on the default form rather than building a form from scratch. So it minimizes like the amount of differences that are made.
Maybe the solution is to let people add new symptoms, but you can't change the standard form. Like this is the minimum you need to somehow or can fill in, but if you want to add things which so far haven't been added, then you can make up your own categories, but we say this is the standard form, which is unchangeable, to have like some overlap.
Another way to encourage sort of people collecting around the same data is to suggest items that other people are using, which brings in sort of the data sharing around what other people have done. And but maybe the way it's structured is when you create a new potential symptom, that's something that's now going to be suggested to others, and it says so and so many people or other people are using it.
Yeah, so like I like the idea, but in practice, at least for OpenSNP with the phenotypes, we have seen how this doesn't work out at all. That's like my one
At least
fear.
with eye color, because everyone has very unique eye color.
Like if you just ask people to report their eye color, they give you at least, I would say by now it's 40 different answers because people like to be very unique. So people might also want to be very, very unique in the kinds of symptoms, which is something I would be afraid of in terms of reusability. I wonder whether there's a way to have a community review step of new symptoms to be added. To say you can suggest one, but then somehow the community looks over and can say, actually what you are suggesting is another one which is already there.
Mm.
I think you're going to be people who have gotten the flu and people who have not gotten the flu will not join. I have not gotten the flu. I can't remember when I last had the flu. Now I'm genetically a high homocysteine person, which might help me fight against the flu and other diseases, but and encourages my my inflammation elsewhere. But you won't have people joining who don't get the flu.
Do we have flu vaccine as a radio button?
That's
interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing that's low-hanging fruit is dumping other symptoms into comments or reporting out. I just tried to enter other symptoms for the first time and noticed that it's not reflected in either the symptoms list or in the table. I broke it again.
It's kind of a painful text field. It's like not broken, but it's sort of like hard to add the additional code to represent a random text field and how to handle it.
Have you seen the COVID survey from Join All of Us? They sent a flu survey for everybody.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Would you post that? Because I haven't seen it.
Well, you have to. I don't know how you copy it, so I don't know. But it's only members who have joined All of Us who are asked this question, and it was a pretty simple questionnaire, and it didn't mention are you taking vitamin D3 or zinc, which annoyed me. So
at one point I sat down and I reviewed a whole bunch of questionnaires that research studies were using. So. And some of the questions come from that, like the wet cough with mucus. Even now, I know there's symptoms out there that are COVID specific. Some of this symptom tracking here is trying to navigate sort of all, general symptoms versus COVID-19 specific symptoms. And like there's certainly symptoms on here that are not symptoms that you would expect someone with COVID-19 to have, but maybe correlated with being sick.
I know we have to end soon, but I do think that this is a kind of a good point that Dave is making, and I think we're aware of it, but it's called quantified flu, and yet in some sense it's a general symptom tracker attached to some very useful wearables data. So it's quite easy to imagine a use case for this system that isn't flu specific, and yet it's called quantified flu. And, this is just kind of in some ways, a labeling trade-off because we're all very concerned about the flu right now and it has high relevance, but it also is a limitation. And but I just think that's actually quite true and that came up again, Mad, when you just spoke, because you were saying, well, this is kind of a middle way between sort of some flu specific things and then some things that are useful to everybody. So, I mean, there's a lot of tweaking that could be done, but I just wanted to share also a general impression in using it and having done a lot of like subjective kind of self-tracking before. I think the 5-point scale is the best thing about it. It's really useful. The sliders are really useful. It's very easy to compare that data. They're, it's not like I've seen people use 100-point scales, and stuff, and that becomes very hard. And I also think the generic categories are pretty useful. So just to say, I think you've got like a big core of the central territory covered. And then how you change it should just be a cost benefit thing for how hard it is. And it might, yeah, anyway, just to get that said.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there should just be a custom category, and then you can just add custom stuff, and then it always presents the other stuff, and then you can add custom symptoms that you always track.
I think we will need to spend a bit more time to figure out how to hit the sweet spot between making it customizable and useful for more than one person, I think. Because it would be a shame if people just end up having 50 different categories for the same thing and then you can't compare the data. I think that's something to see how we make the trade-off.
Yeah, I think the feedback here helps me think about it. Thinking about it. Thanks everyone for joining the community call. And if there are folks on Thursday's call, then I look forward to seeing you again or seeing you in future calls. So thanks all.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sign up for the meetup if you want to come.
Gary, did you have the form?
I posted it in the chat, yes. You can help debug the process anyway and see if it works now. I pray it does.
Why don't we share it also? Can we share it? Do you want to share it more broadly in the Open Human Slack?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So then everyone,
I'll put it in general.
Yeah, I'll copy this into our meeting notes. But
it at least resolves.
Okay.
Yeah, it works.
Actually,
I haven't tried to submit.
Okay, I won't post it. I'll do another couple tests using a signed out browser, and then I'll post it in general.
Yeah, I was also able to submit it.
Good. Okay, everybody. Hopefully, I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah.
See you
folks.
Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Matt. See you, Bastian.